you are listening to the Footy Mailbag Podcast with Damo and Clarky.
Hello and welcome to the Footy Mailbag. My name is Damo and let's welcome back Clarky after a week off. Wasn't the same without you last week, mate.
Yeah, and then football almost fucking killed me.
For
Sorry,
your sake,
swearing podcast.
For your sake, I won't mention it. Really, that came out of nowhere, that Melbourne Freo game. This week's guest is one half of Third Man Up and known for their captaincy and rookie spreadsheets on X or Twitter or whatever it's called, and forms 1/3 of the SuperCoach Swordplay podcast as well. Welcome to the show, Janath.
Thank you, Damo. Thank you, Clarky. Thanks for having me on, boys. Well, I'm not going to get in between your boys, Demons and Freo game. I'll just say go Blues. Big win on Thursday night. Look to carry that on into Essendon this week, mate.
Damn right. I'm a Blues fan now.
I know too many Carlton supporters to dislike Carlton. It's just getting to that point where I like Carlton. Breaking news: Damo likes Carlton.
Number one Matthew Cottrell fan.
I like that. That's respectable.
Just a reminder, on the buys this week are the Dockers and the Power. So your Zach Butters, Caleb Sarong, Luke Ryan, Dan Houston, those sorts of players won't be playing this week. So put them on your bench or use them to loop your captains or something this week, but they're not going to score for you. So don't expect a score from those guys. Rookies on the bubble this week. We've got Will Dawson, who's probably the most popular one at this point. 117k defense forward swing. If he plays forward, he's probably not as useful to us. But if he plays defense, we could see some intercepts. We could see some nice scoring. Have you guys looked into Will Dawson? Do you think he's the top rookie, or have you guys got your eye on someone else?
I think I will go with whichever one gets the green tick. That's my general thing right now, is making sure that we have these guys to cash out and get the upgrades on the field, and my bench can suck it. Janath, how about you?
Yeah, if I bring in Will Dawson, part will be the fact that Zach Fisher, Alex Sexton, defensive forward types are in the team already, and it'd be very handy come the season, because right now you're probably never going to be able to cash Will Dawson in. So you're not looking solely from a cash perspective, more so from a flexibility perspective down the line. So I like Dawson for the manner. Sources this week say he's probably going to play forward, so he's not going to play in defense if he's named. If you're really looking for a player that's going to score on-field points over the next couple of weeks, Toby McMullen from GWS to fill in for Cogs in the midfield is a good one. No more buy, obviously, since they had theirs just gone. And then big raps coming out of South Australia on Billy Dowling. Crazy SANFL numbers as junior and this year. So if you're looking to go early on a rookie, I think Dowling may be the one. But again, it's probably just safe to hold off and just see at least what his role looks like at the senior level.
You mentioned Toby McMullen there. He's on the bubble, 123k, but only forward eligible. Jack Bytel and Lockie McNeil are also there, and he's not on the bubble anymore, but Lekalia is also available at 190k, and we've seen people have a good look at him, but Jack Buckley is due back over the next couple of weeks, might even be this week. So yeah, he who knows what Lekalia's job security is, but they'll find it hard to drop him after that game-saving mark 100%. Right before their bye. So it might be a Nick Haynes that goes out and they shuffle their lineup a little bit to facilitate all three of those big guys down back.
I think rumours are showing that Lekalia spent the week off still shaking hands. Just went and carried straight on into the bye, kept that work rate up, which is something that we like to see from football players.
Janath, you mentioned Billy Dowling there, named to debut. Jack Hutchinson has also been named to debut for West Coast. You've obviously said that you're happy to go early on Billy Dowling. What about a Jack Hutchinson? He feels like he probably has better job security than Dowling.
Yeah, I'd like to think that's. I think Dowling does have good job security. The fact is that he probably straight in for Matt Crouch, and you just see the movement with the Crows dropping Riley O'Brien, bringing in Kieran Strachan. I know he's not exactly young, but the fact is that Adelaide's really looking towards next season. I think Dowling is a big part of that future, especially with the raps that they've had on him. Just with Hutchinson, it's just tough to go there because yes, he's 102k, but you just never know with these mid-season rookies just how they look. If it was someone like the name's skipping my mind, but the Richmond intercepting defender that had good waffle numbers and looked really good at VFL level as well.
Jacob
I'd be a
Blight.
bit more. Yeah, that's right. Thank you. Would be a bit more comfortable, but I wouldn't advise going early on a rookie that hasn't played this week, just because McMullen or Dawson should fill in a hole this week. And if you're looking for another rookie in the next couple of weeks when the rookies sort of dry up, then the names of your Dowling, your Hutchinson probably come more into play.
Yeah, I think you've nailed it there, Janath, where I think we shouldn't look to jump off just strictly to cash out, although that is the main purpose. You still want to leave yourself with a little bit of security in terms of if something goes super south, you can still have a chance to get yourself some points, or you can still have your chance to build up a little bit of money if you need to just try and get that little bit of extra one up, one down.
That's it.
Kind of vibe. So yeah, I think we've got plenty of good options that are on the bubble this week.
That's it, mate. Yeah.
So there's been some primos that have come off the bye this week. So if you trade them in, there won't be another bye for them this season. So the names that we're talking about is Luke Davies-Uniacke, Harry Sheasel, Lockie Neal, Errol Goulden, Nick Blakey, Tristan Sherry. If you need to change up your ruck line, Lockie Whitfield, Tom Green comes in under 500k, and Josh Dunkley has a pretty high break even, but he's another one who's had a pretty consistent year that's flying under the radar, probably because of that buy that happened after opening round, keeping him out of people's thoughts. There's a pretty clear cut top 3 or 4 here in Davies-Uniacke, Lockie Neal. You've also got Chad Warner, Isaac Heaney, those sorts of guys that people are looking at. But it's really a case of, do you want to go for value to finish your team, or do you want to go for like proven top scorers? And Lockie Neal is probably sitting pretty close to the top of that tree.
It's very funny to come out of the first week of the bye and into a 2-team bye round, because I think it makes it feel a lot like we're in one of those Survivor auctions where it's like, do we want to spend our cash early and get like a Lockie Neal, a Chadley Warner, like get into these guys who are at that top end already, proven themselves over the season and built up that money, and go, right, well, I just need one guy to finish off that line, or to really stick with the value and go, well, hey, actually, I'm going to have a few trades left over coming out of the bye. Do I want to have the ability to sideways and try to make some moves up the ranks? I think for me, the number one guy is kind of Lockie Neal. I know it's really easy to go for the value, but I just think he's had such a solid, consistent season, and that's desperately what I'm searching for. I'm searching for so much consistency because I can't take the emotional roller coaster. But what about you two? Who sticks out as your first pick of that bunch?
I guess I'll just come in here and just, if you're looking for value, it's really hard to pass up Tom Green. I'd say off those mids that you mentioned, Damo, he's gone above 134 times, but he arguably feels the worst of the lot if you just look at them, take out the price sort of thing, because I've been an owner for a couple of weeks and he has not been an enjoyable own. Whereas Lockie Neal has been the other way, where I'm like, 117, he's averaging 117. He feels like he's gone very, very under the radar in that sense. But then on the flip side, if you're looking for sort of matchup basis, we did a breakdown on Third Man Up a couple of days ago, and Luke Davies-Uniacke came out on top. And he, off those mids that we just mentioned before, he has the easiest to run home. He's got Gold Coast, who's a quite an easy inside mid matchup at the moment. Geelong, Richmond in back-to-back rounds, then West Coast after that. So it's 3 matchups really close to Supercoach finals that he should go bang, bang, bang in. And he's got West Coast this week as well. So just no Harley, no Tim Kelly. If you're looking for a pod, like an Uber pod, only really owned in, he's only really owned in sub 5% of teams, really at the high end as well. I think he's someone that you could be jumping on. But yeah, Lachie Neale probably stands out as if you've got unlimited budget and you're not worried about splurging, whereas Tom Green is quite a good value option this week.
I like the other Lockie because personally I'm looking to complete my defense. So I think Lockie Whitfield at under 500k is really good value. I know that he's got some matchups coming up that aren't quite as favorable, but with the strength of the other players in that line that I've got at the moment, I'm happy for him to sit at D5, D6 and have that pretty healthy floor of, or pretty happy, median score of about a 90, 95. So, and he's got the ability to go massive the way he plays. So under 500k for ceiling value, I'm bringing in Lockie Whitfield for me this week, and he's my top option for especially on that defense line.
Isn't it really funny that both of the GWS players in that list are the least fun to own if you've owned them previously in this run-up? Because I started with Tom Green and brought in Lockie Whitfield when he had that really good run, and it's been just a bad time. But now they're absolute value at that price. When we were speaking a few weeks ago about Clayton Oliver, everybody was talking about the capability and potential of these players at those prices. Getting them while they're cheap is definitely the most economical and leaves you with plenty of room to play with as more teams come off their buys.
Could I just add a couple of players, Damo, into this mix as well? So Brodie Grundy and Dane Zorko probably off their buys as well. Zorko, very high risk tolerance involved with him, but I guess now that his buy is over and you're sort of entering into the final upgrade territory, that it may be a bit more worthy of taking the risk on him, given a favourable St Kilda matchup coming up, and really the role is there, just didn't score well against Hawthorn. And I think Brodie Grundy as well, the next couple of matchups in particular, Geelong, Toby Conway, Adelaide, Kieran Strachan, GWS, Kieran Briggs, all should be plus matchups for him. And then we all know what he can do against at the SCG as well. So I think if you're looking for a ruckman to go up to this week, I think Brodie Grundy is a fine option as well.
Good call. And I think people who started with Brodie Grundy and then traded him out, me, I'm going to admit I probably should have been a little more patient with him, because he has come good, and at his price, he has proved to be really good value. So, but there were people who got so fed up with him going up and down in that new Sydney team that he'd never played in before, thinking that he would come out of the box and be that all-Australian extra midfielder type ruckman straight out the bat at Sydney, and it hasn't quite been that way. But if you held on to him, and you now at this point in the season, he's probably just as good sitting at R2 with Max Gawn. Hopefully people have Max Gawn as anyone else around.
Yeah. Agreed, totally.
So notable premiums with low break-evens who still have a buy coming up, so only bring them in if it suits your team structure. Jeremy Cameron, Tim English, Sam Walsh, Nick Dacos, Sam Flanders, Jordan Ridley has now played 2 games, so his price will start to fluctuate there. And Tom Stewart. Seen some numbers on the internet of him playing with Max Holmes and Zach Guthrie. Is he still a primo, or is there a little bit of Nick Haynes going on with Tom Stewart at the moment?
I'd probably say the time is now to go with Max Holmes if you're looking for a Geelong defender. Max Holmes is still only 560k, and it's not that Tom Stewart is bad as a player. I think just the role is different, right? Like that's that's what's really sort of playing out, and that's not something that he can help. It doesn't mean that they're not looking to use him as a core part of that team. I think it's just, buy when he hits the purple patch, when he sort of settles into that. And there are other players that have had sort of a similar kind of thing where it's, you've got Jaden Short, similar thing, very capable player who has just had their role tweaked in a way that is not favorable to their scoring as it was before, right? People kind of figured out with Geelong, you slow down Tom Stewart and you're going to really affect the way that Geelong plays. And we're seeing that.
You said it there, Clarky. Teams have worked out how to shut down Tom Stewart, and he's struggling to overcome that at the moment. So his scores will fluctuate as teams put players on him and work out who's going to shut him down the best. And we've seen players work through that and then come out 2, 3, 4 weeks down the line, and a tag doesn't affect them anymore. So it's really, how long can you afford to wait on Tom Stewart, but still grab him at his discounted, at his cheap price? Like, how many bad scores are you willing to cop if you get him at this cheap price now? Because his break even is very achievable by his standards, and he could get that on the weekend. But if he doesn't, then his price will come down again, and then his price will come down again. But it's kind of like, when is it going to click? And you can't really, you could no one's got a crystal ball where they can see when it's all going to come together, and he's going to realize how to get around these taggers that he's now getting attention from.
The matchup for him was against Richmond, and that was something I was really looking at, because all the data was there to suggest that intercepting defenders, designated kickers, they all play really well against Richmond. And it was a close game. Everything sort of lined up for him to do well, and he only got 76. Max Holmes, like you were saying, Clark, is the pick of the Geelong defenders right now. And I'll probably, I'm not sure if you guys were the same, but at a certain point in time after the concussion, I was like, okay, I'm going to get in Tom Stewart in round 10 or whatever it was. And I'm like, all right, maybe not this week. I'll get him next week. Maybe not this week. I'll get him next week. It's like this cycle where you're like, maybe Tom Stewart is just not an option this year. And it should be fine to say that we got players like Jordan Clark, Max Holmes, Jordan Ridley. You got Lockie Whitfield. These players, sort of Jeremy McGovern types, that are sort of playing better at the moment. You can see a long-term outlook where they actually do outscore Tom Stewart, and it's completely okay to go past Tom Stewart, even though he's been SuperCoach royalty over these past couple of years.
We've all seen SuperCoach royalty fall off a cliff before as well. So is he going to have a bounce back year next year, a little bit like Jack Steele, or is he going to just continue to slide down the line like some players that we now talk about? We still look at like a Dustin Martin, but they're not anywhere near being SuperCoach relevant anymore, at least on a consistent basis. So has Tom Stewart fallen off a cliff? It's hard to tell.
Just Damo, just to add to that, I would say once you get figured out in the AFL, teams catch on. So something like Harley Reid, even the attention that he got from Marcus Windhage, you'd be pretty sort of stupid as a coach not to put attention to Harley Reid now, just seeing the way that he wasn't able to cope with the attention. You see that with Tom Stewart. Sometimes Lockie Whitfield, when gets tagged, just gets completely nullified out of games, and it's pretty ignorant of a coach not to put that attention on him if that's your best chance of winning the game, really.
Sorry, Tom Stewart, still the king of our hearts. Shout out to M. If you're listening out there, M, we're thinking of you with Tom Stewart, baby.
Any other guys you have your eye on?
Plenty of guys coming off their buys in the next couple of weeks that I want to see. Jordan Ridley, who you spoke about in that list. I know that we're meant to be talking about other guys, but he's someone who I'm probably not going to be super tempted to bring him in just before he goes on leave. But someone who I'm very keenly interested in moving forward.
Yeah, I like that. I like that call. And yeah, there's just some other players. Like I'm really interested in Isaac Rankin after he comes back from his injury. Yes, he'll probably get a game in before his buy and go up in price, but it's against Sydney. at the SCG, like how much is he realistically going to score? Is he going to get tagged by James Jordan? But yeah, he should. Without Matt Crouch in there, you should really see a big uptick if they're looking towards the future and seeing Isaac Rankin as a big part of that midfield going forward. And he should be a top 6 forward from the time that he comes back in.
Yeah, I can't wait.
I've kind of left a spot for Isaac Rankin. So I'll be trying to build a little bit of cash or trying to get some rookies to build enough cash to do a 1 up, 1 down with Deny to get him in. So I'm hoping that there's a game when he returns that drops his price a little bit because at the moment the rookies are not making a lot of cash and are very, very they flirt with the subvest, let's say.
That's it. Yeah.
As the season winds down in the second half, we will be adding new segments such as interviews. Just we'll keep adding them as we think of them. But we're debuting a new one today.
It's time for Clarky's Spark.
That's right. Damo couldn't contain me for a whole episode, so he gave me my own little playpen to sit in what we're going to be referring to as a working title, Clarky's Sparks. Now, I've highlighted in this segment, I want 3 guys, and I want you both to tell me a little bit of a yay or nay, who we may not have spoken about, their low ownership, but think they're people that we should be considering. So I'm going to start with numero uno. We mentioned him a little bit before. Okay, this is kind of cheating, but hey, that's conversation that happens naturally sometimes. Chad Warner. I don't think enough people are talking about Chad Warner. 3-round average of 138, 5-round average of 130, less than 5% owned, currently 4.8% of teams, just over 600k. Chad's doing it, baby. Chad's back.
If I wasn't going down the value route this week, he would be someone I would be really looking at for my team. But I went the value route and it didn't quite fit into my plans. But he's having a great season and
fun to watch. Passes the vibe check.
He kicks goals. He's a goal kicking midfielder. And he seems to just, when he grabs the ball and runs, just it feels like doors swing open for him, and like players kind of it almost feels like players step out of his way. He doesn't step out of players' ways. Like that's just the way that he moves in games, and he scores because he impacts the game. He tackles. He racks up the ball. Yeah.
Damo, don't you just want to give him a big old little kiss on his forehead? Just go. That's good SuperCoach, baby. So I'm going to take that as a yay from Damo for Chad Warner. Janath, how do you feel about Chadley?
I don't mind it. He's one of those picks where I think you got to be a specific SuperCoach archetype of player to go for him. Like the shoot, aim for the moon, even if you land among the stars, sort of player. I'd say because his ceiling is probably the best of the lot. But also, we've seen in the past that he could get shifted forward. Sydney, they're just looking untouchable at the moment. Is there risk that they sort of do rest him up forward to end the season? And just from that same fixture analysis I was talking about before, looking at Neil, Dunkley, Warner, Davies, Uniacke, Green and Goulden, for inside mids, Chad Warner's role, he's got the hardest fixture difficulty as per DFS Australia one. They have the defense first position for the last 5 matchups. So using that data, Chad Warner came out with the hardest fixture run off those plays. So look, I'm going to say yes, but you got to be a player that really likes those high upside plays, because I think that we may be overlooking the fact that some of the goals that Warner scored against the Bulldogs literally fell into his lap. He was just right place, right time. Now, is that a case of him being the footy smarts to get there, or is it just luck? It's hard to say, but he's a gun player. He's a good player to watch as well, so I wouldn't mind bringing him in.
Janath, you guys create some of my favorite spreadsheets and the most informative information out there. And everyone listening, make sure you're following Janath and the crew because they put out such good information. But I feel like I've insulted you by bringing my vibe check analysis into this.
No,
but that
you
is
need
good
a
thing.
good vibe check. It's good.
That's really good. That's a really good point to put forward to. That fixture is important, and especially for those certain type of super coach players, like you said, like maybe somebody in this room who brought him in right before his bye, and they gave him a little week off so that he can finish off the season strong. Somebody, I don't want to name names. I don't want to out people, but number
We
2,
like it.
numero uno for me. This one is definitely way more of a 1.2% ownership. Current 3-round average of 122, 5-round average of 102. Now, this one requires you to have allowance in your buy structure because he hasn't had his yet. But every dog has his day, and so does Will. Will Day, 107. Hawks are flying. I love Will Day, the player, as well. I think he's so important to be on for them in terms of scoring, and he is back from his injury. He's had now 6 games to work himself back in. First 3 games, no hundreds. 67 against Sydney, 58 against the Bulldogs, 89 against St Kilda. Okay, not great. Comes out with a 142 against Port in that absolutely devastating loss. 117 against Brisbane and a 107 against Adelaide. Comes up against GWS, Richmond, West Coast, and Geelong in the next 4, but includes a bye in round, 15? 15? 16.
Yeah.
One of them.
Round
I can't.
15 bye. Yep.
You know what? I wear glasses and they don't help me see the tiny numbers when I've got too many windows open. So he
Love
is
it.
coming. He hasn't had his bye yet, but at 554k, he is somebody who I think could set you apart just a little bit from your competition.
I'm a big yes. I love the pick. If it fits your buy, as you're saying, that round 15 buy with the Hawks, Crows, Collingwood, Bulldogs, St Kilda, and Richmond. Melbourne is the week before, but
Yeah,
that's a tough buy for some teams to just navigate around. But if you can get through that round, I know, for instance, Spills on the Swordplay podcast, he's only got 2 primos on that buy. So someone like him, Will Day is perfect because you got Richmond, West Coast back to back in a couple of weeks, and then you got Richmond North to finish the season. Like 4 of those matchups plus the Geelong matchup. That's 5 matchups for inside midfielders. That is premium matchups, really. So if you're looking for that pod play, high upside, and as you were saying, Clarky, another one that passes the vibe check. We owned him last year. It was pretty fun to watch, I'd say. And then, yeah, he just makes Hawthorn look an almighty better unit as well.
that's it. Damo's here. Yay or a nay for you?
I'd hazard a guess that if he had a better start when he first came into the Hawks side, he would be owned by a lot more teams already. But when he started off with the 60 odd and the 80 odd in his first 2 games back, people weren't really sure what to make of him. Wasn't really sure how he was going to fit into the Hawks midfield. But now he is absolutely flying, and we're seeing the likes of Jai Newcomb fly as well. So Will Day is obviously their number 1 in the midfield, and Jai Newcomb is obviously their number 2, and having them both as a 1-2 punch is delivering some excellent results for Hawthorn. So Will Day gets a big tick from me, but I wouldn't bring him in until after his bye.
It's coward talk, Damo. It's coward talk. But also a very reasonable,
But it's all about the buy structure, really, isn't it, Dame? Because if you're stacked on the buy, there's no way you're bringing him in. It's more so a very team specific sort of player, as you're talking, Clarky.
Yeah, and those people who are stacked in that buy are not going to like my third suggestion either. This one is going to be dependent on some news to come out later this week, but someone that we should still keep an eye out for. 1.8% ownership, 3-round average 119, 5-round average 103. Currently coming off a concussion week, and that's Archie Comics' favorite son, Ed Richards.
Being ruled out this week, Clarky.
Already?
Yeah.
No, this is terrible for my segment because I was busy. But still has his buy climb open around 15, but someone I think we should consider. 543 looking forward ahead for these guys coming off the buys. Has taken that midfield role and is kind of going as their number one user, exploding out of that midfield. So with Liberatore out for an indefinite period, this one is one that takes a little bit of courage, but I think has the capacity for high upside with minimal risk compared to those guys at his price. This is someone who I'm looking at and hoping that he can get back to the park as soon as possible. So after his bye, then if he's ruled out this week, would be the perfect time to jump on Ed Richards if either of you have considered him in your future plans.
Yeah, it's. Sorry, Damon, do you want to go ahead?
He's... Even if he moves back to his half-back role once Western Bulldogs' entire midfield is available, I don't think that's an entirely bad thing for his scoring. But at over 500k, it almost feels like you've missed the boat. And we know Luke Beveridge likes to throw magnets at the magnet board to see what sticks. And if the Bulldogs have some pretty poor weeks, I can see some more players being moved out of position. And given that Richards was one of the first into the midfield, he might be one of the first out as well. Sorry, last into the midfield, he might be one of the first out, just to give them something. And Liberatore is due back within the next few weeks. They're giving Riley Sanders more of a go again. Is there a spot for Ed Richards? At over 500k, he's probably a nay for me.
Yeah, I'd agree with Damo on that, mate. But just the other thing to add here is that Libert is expected to return this week as well. So probably, if anything, I can still see Richards holding a little bit off that midfield role. But there's probably one... He's coming off a 2-week concussion, so it's clear that the concussion symptoms haven't sort of gone over just yet. So it'd be very risky, I'd say, to go on him before the bye. And yeah, there's just too much uncertainty with that Bulldogs midfield. With Sam Darcy injured as well, what does this do to Marcus Bontempelli? The dynamic is just something that I'm not sort of wanting to test out with Richards, but I can see people going for him. I just think there's better defensive options as well that are going to pop up, like Jordan Clark after the bye.
That's it. And if you want one, a Bulldog that's actually going to play this week, Adam Treloar is 1.5% owned and currently on a 3-round average of 125.
Crazy. Heater.
He's expensive, though.
He's been flying under the radar, and I looked at him a few weeks ago, and I did not have the cojones to pick him up.
It's really funny now because he's flying so high that you can't see him on the radar. That's how expensive he is.
You always think that he's just going to injure himself, right? But he's been very, very durable. He's getting the perfect role inside that Bulldogs midfield. A low score of 91 for the season. There's worse picks than him, but 650k is a lot to pay off Adam Treloar. Let's be real.
Yeah, you're paying Marcus Bontempelli money for Adam Treloar, which is wild.
The one thing with Adam Treloar is I've still got vivid memories of seeing him do his double hamstring and writhe on the sidelines in that game where he did it. And every time I pick him, I can just see it happening again. And I just don't want to deal with that with my SuperCoach team.
But that's the end of my little playpen segment. Thanks for that, Damo. Let's get to the questions.
Let's get to the listener questions. So that was Clarky's Sparks. That is a new segment that's going to be every week. There might be one player, there might be 3 players, there might be 5 players. Clarky's got free reign over that segment, and it's going to be there every week from now on, plus some others that we will introduce in the coming rounds. Let's get to listener questions, as Clarky said. First one comes from Sam. Is it worth sideways trading Ollie Wines, who has the bye, to Tom Green and make 30K?
Ooh,
Um,
interesting. I
no,
don't mind it.
I'd like.
Oh,
I just. Do you want to jump just because you need to, or is this like do you actually see Tom Green being a long-term option for yourself, or are you just going, it makes sense because he's a name? I think there's a little bit of context missing from this one for me, where I'm like, okay, what's the goal, right? Ollie Wines has an average of 101 at the moment. Just hang on, fact checking myself. Yeah, 101, which is really good, right? Why would you not keep that rolling while the getting's good?
and that Clark, that includes the 34 that he had to come off with the vascular issues. So basically, if you look at he's turned up in the last 5 games that he's completed. So that's I'll probably take it back in terms of the sideways. Like, one of the main tips that you say for the bye rounds is you want to come out with a better side than you started with. And I think sidewaysing at this point in the buys probably defeats that goal a little bit, unless there's a specific reason you're looking to jump off Ollie Wines and you see Tom Green being a must-have or something along those lines, really.
I wouldn't do it, but I also don't know if I would have selected Ollie Wines in the first place. So,
I think that's fine.
And I'm one of those people who, if I don't feel comfortable with a pick, I'm looking to get at any way possible. So they're having a bye. See you later. They've been concussed and they're out for a week. Goodbye. Like, they've been suspended. Goodbye. Like, Ollie Wines is the kind of player that if I can stay as further away from in my Supercoach world as possible, that'd be great. So I wouldn't do it just on the surface looking at the numbers, but as someone who prefers Tom Green over an Ollie Wines, I would. But that's personal preference over the player, not over the numbers that they're producing.
Yeah.
Next question comes from Ro. He asks, could one possibly hang on to Sam Darcy with best 18 scoring? He's not quite worth enough for me to do a decent upgrade. In saying that, I really want Zach Fisher. Are there any 102k cheapies that can help me get there? Well, Jack Hutchinson was just named to debut, and he looks like he's going to have good job security. There's a 102k player that is definitely playing. But otherwise, you can look at Jacob Blight. He looks really close to coming into that Richmond side. Campbell Gray is another one who might step into that Markelty Lafau role, but Tom Lynch is pretty close to returning as well, so who knows on that one. Max Hall didn't have a great first outing for Sandringham, so who knows how far away he is from the Saints team, but he is another one with big raps. There's just a couple of 102k guys there, but we'll go back to the original question of, could one possibly hang on to Sam Darcy with best 18 scoring?
Yeah, 100%. I think on the Swordplay podcast last night as well, I was talking about the fact is Sam Darcy's not going to go down in price for these next 2 weeks. So you could probably cash him out this week, next week, or the week after to facilitate an upgrade. I probably prefer to move on your Darcy Wilson, Sam Closey, even some of the dead rookie types like Hugo Garcia ahead of Sam Darcy. Just for the fact is you don't lose the cash that you work so hard to build up in these players. And this week in particular, I think this is the week that most teams, I won't say all teams, but most teams shouldn't be in too difficult of a position to field at least 18. So it's probably worth sort of thinking about the money side of things because cash is really tightening up as well. And for the second part in terms of Zach Fisher, if Sam Darcy gets you Zach Fisher, I'm all for it. I think Zach Fisher in this role, Colby McKerch is still a couple of weeks away at minimum. They probably won't risk their young star, even if the rising star is sort of on the line. Sack Fisher in that role when Sheasel plays in the midfield is really, really good. And he should be a top 6 forward from here on out to end the season.
Next question. I'm just going to leave it there. I think we've answered that one. Next question comes from Jesse.
Boo, Jesse, boo.
Yeah, your co-host for your
Co-host
other
of The
podcast.
Falcon, a footy podcast this week. We spoke to our friend of the show, Tom, from Footy with Broden Kelly, and that was a pleasure. Go listen to that, Falcon Footy Pod and everything.
Love it.
There you go, Jesse, I did it.
Falcon Footy Pod. We'll put the info on our socials for people to find it. He wants to know, should we worry when our primos have shocking starts like Steele on the weekend, or should we judge them by their final scores?
I think you should always take into account performance because you can't rely on a big quarter. There's only a handful of exceptions to this rule. The most obvious one being Marcus Bontempelli, who, look, even if he has a bad week, I'm going to give Bont a fair pass just as, the resident football's god. He gets a pass on that. I am all for booing Jack Steele, especially after his was it no touch first quarter this week just gone. It was an absolute just awful thing to witness, and it's really indicative of either a game strategy or form. When a player is down, you can kind of see that, and this is what we talk about when we talk about the eye test, right? Where it's not necessarily always about going, oh, well, this person is scoring well, because anomalies can happen.
Yeah, and same with Took as well. It's like,
yeah,
you can't judge a play until the game's finished, because we see with these plays that are high impact around the ball in a close game, it's only a matter of a clearance, a free kick, a hold in the ball, a goal. These really impactful plays get bulk points at the end of games. And yeah, Jack Steele getting up to 118 after a 0 disposal, 6 points, SuperCoach first quarters really just goes to show the fact that he's a capable scorer. And I think that's really proof to say, yeah, back him in, see how he goes, but still not convinced that Jack Steele is a keeper as a top 8 sort of midfielder from here until the end of the season.
For sure. I think the whole...
When are you landing booing, Damo?
I think the whole game should be considered, but when you do see quarters where a player only adds 10 points, 6 points, 2 points onto their total, you kind of want to understand the why. So did their role change? Did someone go to them? A few weeks ago, I think Sam Walsh had a 40-point quarter one and then a 8-point quarter two, and it was because someone went to him in the second quarter. If that's the reason, then that's fine. But you have to kind of know the why, the circumstances, why they scored that badly, to kind of understand and then judge after that. If they'd have a 40-point first quarter and then sort of coast for the rest of the game, that probably rings more alarm bells than someone who goes 40 in the first quarter and then gets tagged because they're having too much of an impact. Because at least you have a reason why that player didn't score that well in that quarter or to finish the rest of the game. And players that can't work through tags is a little bit of an issue, but I think the whole game needs to be taken into account, but also the why they didn't score well to begin with or in a certain quarter also needs to be looked at as well, so you understand the reason for that poor start or poor quarter along the way.
So in summary, don't judge them just on their final score, but try to see what the narrative of the entire game was that led to that final score. So use that as a starting point to go, all right, why was it only 118 when I was expecting X? Or why was it only 80 when it should have been 100? So, also, don't be afraid to boo, though. Boo bad quarters. Not directly to the players. We don't disparage players directly, but it's okay to boo.
I
At home.
also really really dislike Ross Lyon to the point where he will say, like, post game, that he will give his leaders roles to kind of help the younger inexperienced guys. So he might have given Jack Steele a role to begin the game that he then released him from at quarter time. So I just really hate Ross Lyon, and I know that he does that kind of thing because I had to sit through it for 8 years when he coached Fremantle.
I agree, Damo. Fuck Ross Lyon.
Jesse has asked a second question.
Sorry, poor Janath. Janath, I apologize to bring you on our vulgar, dirty show that's no longer the clean Jock Reynolds mailbag. We've gone
good.
full, baby. Drink the Kool-Aid stuff.
It's alright, I like it. It's all good.
Jesse's asked a second question.
Oh, this guy.
This guy.
So, Luke Davies-Uniacke, is he a pod for pod's sake, or do we see a genuine run between now and season's end? Janath, you spoke about his run home earlier in the podcast. Do you want to quickly run through it again?
Yeah, just to reiterate, I think Luke Davies-Uniacke, if you're looking for a player that his last five average is 116, last three 126. The next couple of games are really, really good in terms of the fixture run. So he's got West Coast at Optus this week, and then Collingwood and Marvel. We just saw what the Bont, Trelaw types did, and then Melbourne at the MCG. We just saw it's probably going to be a different team. You wouldn't expect that same performance to repeat itself against North. But then, it really opens up again. Round 17, Gold Coast. Round 20, and then round 20, 21, 22 is Geelong, Richmond, West Coast back to back to back. So yes, most matchups for North look pretty bad, but if you're looking specifically in isolation at the inside midfielder matchups, you probably say there's at least six favourable matchups on the run home for those inside midfielders to do well against. And I think Davies-Uniacke will really benefit. So I've been an owner from day dot, even when there were question marks around whether or not the post by round 2023 will stack up. And it's taken a while, but I sort of feel vindicated in the pick now. And I would say I would recommend him as a selection this week, but probably not ahead of your Lockie Neal. Probably not ahead of Lockie Neal or Tom Green. But yes, he is definitely a pod to be looking at this week.
I didn't know if he was a pod, actually, and then I looked and he's only 6% owned, and that kind of shocked me.
Yeah, can we talk about that? Because that happened just before we started recording as well, and I think it was slightly before Janath, before you came, where Damo was like, is LDU a pod? And I was like, yeah, Damo, like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I'm like, hang on, whoa, save it. And I heard him look it up live and just go, huh. And I completely understand why, because I think, Damo, we and a lot of other people, LDU was probably one of the most hyped players that a lot of people had for this preseason. Yeah. So it feels like a lot more people picked him than are still with him, right? And Janath, power to you, mate, for sticking with him, because
it's been a hard ride, mate.
That's vindicating, though.
It's been a hard ride, and that sort of is like being ranked 288th right now, and having held LDU throughout the year just feels like, what the hell is this season? Like, genuinely, that shouldn't be possible.
Jesse, this is why we brought on one of the best stats and analysis guys out there, Janath, SuperCoach Swordplay. Go make sure, listeners, I'm telling you again, go and follow these guys. We're here because you love us, but these guys, they're doing real good work.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, David. Thank you, Clarky.
Next question comes from Tally. Assuming they all keep their current roles, who would be your choice out of Holmes, Richards, Newman, McGovern, Jordan Clark, and Wanganeen Malera in defence to join Dacos, Ryan, Dale, Martin, and Ridley? They're all around the same price, and I don't know who to choose.
Tally, that's an excellent question. I just want to point out that's an excellent question, and thank you for that.
Can
I
I just,
have
can
two
I also
answers.
say thank you for telling us who's also in your defense, because it helps us, because it
So
also
much
because
context.
it makes the decision
It
on
does.
to tell you who to get that much easier,
Yeah.
because we're not trying to bring someone in like for a specific reason. We can see who you have. We can see what's going to improve that defense. And for the record, my answer is either Max Holmes or Wanganeen Malera.
Okay.
Can
Okay.
I play devil's advocate here? And this is solely based off what you were saying, Damo. He's got Nick Dacos and Bailey Dale on that last bye, and Nick Martin and Jordan Ridley in the second last bye. So I would, as a coach here, I'd probably not want to get a third defender premium without DPP. I guess Dacos has DPP, but I wouldn't want to get a third one in. So that's why I would probably be going Jordan Clark off the bye next week. But if all the other ones there have a bye coming up, Wanganeen Malera, Ed Richards, I think both of them have that last bye, and then Max Holmes, Newman, Jeremy McGovern all have the second last bye in round 14. So just process of elimination, Jordan Clark feels is the best lot. But if you're playing for leagues, none of this matters because you just want the best player. If you're looking for the best player, I would be happy with any of Clark, Holmes, McGovern, or Wanganeen Malera. I personally went McGovern last week as it fit my buy strategy, but I think Jordan Clark in that defense, Damo, you can probably speak more to this, but is he just in a purple patch, no pun intended, at the moment, or is he just really this good top 6 level defender player?
When Freo are flying, he's also flying, and you can see in the scores of the season, and you can tell when Freo had that down patch, and now when they went back up, like he's basically their barometer.
Most Clarks are like that.
That's probably the best way to describe him. So if Freo are winning, more than likely Jordan Clark will have a good SuperCoach score. If Freo have lost, he's probably had scored a pretty subpar score, but he's got a pretty good floor for someone in that barometer kind of role. So I really like the Jordan Clark selection, but Holmes, Clark, and Wanganeen Malera are probably my top 3 of the names that you've supplied.
Yeah,
Even
my pick
Wanganeen
was
Malera.
pick was Jordan Clark and Max Holmes. So in that order as well, based on the structure that you've got there. I like Jordan Clark. I think he is kind of just been waiting for his moment, right? Like that's what it feels like, and he's definitely someone who's always shown just these moments of like these low tons leading up to now as well, where he's just got a really favorable role and he's really good at football, and it's fun. I love it. That's my favorite thing when a SuperCoach pick is fun. He's good to watch.
And how good would it be owning Jordan Clark and Luke Ryan and them seeing them play kick to kick and like backyard footy in the middle of an AFL game?
Got it. You just be sitting there racking up your points, rubbing your fingers together.
Was it last season where Jordan Clark, pretty much all of his scores were between 80 and 90? And there were people considering him just because he had that consistent scoring. And it was like late in the season, people were looking for players to just kind of, give them some good scoring, safety nets on their bench. And Jordan Clark was scoring 80 to 90, hovering between the 400 and 450k price. And now we've seen him take that next step because he's reaching that age where he's really starting to impact and really starting to become an experienced player. And he could be someone that we select in our backlines for years to come alongside Luke Ryan.
Yeah, I like it. I like the pick. Wanganeen Malera, the other thing, I guess, with the Saints is they got a really friendly run at the end of the season. 6 straight games at Marvel. Basically, 9 of their last 11 games from here on out are at Marvel. Like, it's a ridiculous Marvel run coming up. So if you Wanganeen Malera, I think his potential is completely dependent on where Jack Sinclair plays. If Sinclair's in the midfield, as he's been, Wangani Malera is a perfectly fine picker. Would be really happy with him as my D6.
Janath, the next question comes to you from James Doherty. Do you still believe that Bonner is a must-have?
Now this is a bait question because, as with all content creators, is in SuperCoach at the start of the season, we were going around talking about must-haves. I did label Riley Bonner in a defensive role as a must-have and didn't follow through with it in my starting side. So, no, James, Riley Bonner is not a must-have. You can trade him out peacefully right now.
He's asked a more serious question. He's asked a few more questions actually. How many trades are you looking to have after the buys? So if planning goes to if everything goes to plan the way I have planned it, which we know in SuperCoach that doesn't always happen, I should have 9 or 10 trades left after the buys, and my team will only need one last upgrade.
Nice. Yeah.
So on the run home, I'm looking to have 8 at a minimum.
Jeez, that's a
Yeah,
lot.
I'm in a pretty similar position, just with a much worse team. Which is, I think, sums up my year apparent. But yeah, look, to be honest, I could pretty much get as close to complete as possible this week and still have 10 trades and only needing to bring in one more on-field, quote-unquote, like keeper. I won't say primo, but keeper, who would probably get me through to a respectable limp home.
Janath, how about yourself?
Either we've got different definitions of primos, or you guys have saved trades really, really well, because 10 trades on the run home feels like a lot. But you guys are both going to be great. Clarky, there's no excuse for you not to make it into the top 5K. Come on, mate.
No, you haven't seen the team yet.
If all goes to plan, I'm planning one sideways trade in the buy between round 14 and 15 of Jack Steele to a Zach Merritt or Matt Real, depending on how things look. And then after the buys, I should have a full team with five trades left. But I'm in a good position cash-wise, so most of the players on field are going to be, you'd say, in the top 10 off their lines, Ruckman, English, Gorn, sort of thing. So 6 to 10 in their line. And then hopefully we'll just see how cash lines up. A Connor Rosier 400k seems like a pretty good option to jump on after he comes back in as sort of that 23rd player. Like, if I don't have to field Tom Green every week, because Connor Rosier's gone to 125 on a Thursday night, I'm all for it.
Can we just quickly talk about Connor Rosier? Because I was looking him up just earlier when we were talking about Tom Green being so cheap and having that ceiling. Connor Rosier is 466k and still has a break even of 178. There is every chance that we can get a Connor Rosier for just a tick above 400k. And I don't see a week where people aren't moving on players just to get this man in their team.
He will be someone that I have 100% looked at as an alternative for Clayton Oliver. To sort of tag team between Green, Oliver, and Rosie, and I'll take the best two. You know,
that sounds fun.
It doesn't feel.
What could go wrong?
Yeah.
What could go wrong?
Yeah. Let's find out.
James has asked another question. Do you think Zach Fisher is a keeper?
In this role, yes.
In this role, in the forward line, yes.
Yes, correct.
If he was a defender only, no.
No. And with McKercher still being, they still haven't given a timeline. And you just never know how long these injuries will take. And so Fisher playing basically as the sole rebounding defender in the North back line, that's just a keeper, regardless of who the players. You could put X-Plane that we've seen with Jack Siebel, Aaron Hall a few years gone by. North, rebounding defender, sole kick and taker. Get on him as a keeper.
Zach Fisher is like an ethical Dane Zorko.
An ethical Dane Zorko.
I like that. I can tell Janath has kept his ears nice and clean and not listening to my filth of talking crap about Dane Zorko for the last 4 weeks.
I was wondering
now.
why I didn't bring him up as an option before.
I usually boo, so you're lucky that you got a sentence out about him without being interrupted by a boo.
Dane Zorko.
But
That's
yes,
good.
Zach Fisher is a keeper as long as this role continues.
Yeah, 100%.
And one last question or statement, I guess. He's looking at trading Oliver to a better primo. He has a nasty buy and hasn't been great. Yes. Just yes.
Yeah,
Would
that
you
makes
wait till next
complete
week?
sense.
He's got Collingwood.
Well,
Bounce back
your
game
oyster.
surely for Melbourne. 134 break even. And just cash him out at the buy if he just doesn't put up a good score this week.
I can see a world where, depending on James's team structure, he could go Oliver to LDU and be happy.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
Like I can understand that. I definitely wouldn't sacrifice yourself to a different buy. You're correct in that. I think you'd still be better off waiting a week because, like you said, he might come out with a freak game, despite Melbourne being a poor football club. Yeah, he's just. I think we've said this. I think we've said this about Clan Oliver every time he comes up, but it feels like he's not doing a lot differently to how he is, but he's just not as impactful with his possessions, right? He's still racking it up. He's still getting in and around the contest. He's just not really laying tackles. He's not really having as much of a swing on the games as he used to. So there's still probably a world where he comes back with a few spike games as Melbourne tries desperately to cling back some semblance of a season. Even though we won't be playing finals. It's yeah, so I think that there is a world where keeping him is the thing that works out for you. But definitely there's a lot of real good guys in that 500 to 600k mark that you can get some decent scores for, especially if you're playing league.
Yep.
And last question comes from Simon. For those that don't have Heaney, is it worth getting him this week, or should we wait for a week or two for his price to drop?
I reckon with the matchup against Geelong, I think we'll talk about vice captain, captaincy options in a bit, but he's right up there as one of the best options this week. So I wouldn't mind getting on him and not having to hide behind a couch whilst that game goes on.
Yeah, Geelong, Adelaide, GWS. They're not altogether neutralizing teams, so he could. There is a world where he's actually more expensive in a couple weeks.
Can I just add something here? Is it bad that we got Sydney and Geelong? Sydney's first, Geelong's third, but it feels like Sydney's playing like a bottom 4 team at the moment, just because of how good Sydney is.
Every team below Sydney is a bottom 4 team. Like,
Yeah.
You know what? And actually, you know what? This is a good time to have a chat about it. I think Sydney it's weird, right? Because Sydney feel like they have just absolutely injected themselves with all this supernatural young talent, which on one hand,
Crazy.
as an opposition supporter, I'm like, this is super unfair that you guys are really good. But then there's this other part of me that's just like, I like Brodie Grundy. I like Errol Goulden. I like Chad Warner. I like that Isaac Heaney at a distance kind of looks like Russell Howard, which is like a bit strange. Like,
What a
Tom
niche
Hatley.
reference.
I know, right? I just
So
anyway,
odd.
I'm not wired correctly, and this is what the listeners expect. But there's just like they're really endearing as a team, and they're having one of the best years, and it's just unstoppable, right? Like.
My only question about Sydney is, have they peaked at the wrong time? Is this going to be sustainable for the whole season? Is there going to be a point where they are gettable, where they do lose that top spot? But I think I think they're top 4. I don't think anyone's disputing that. But my only question is, have they peaked too early, and can they maintain it for the whole season?
Yeah, great.
Probably.
Sorry for that tangent. It was just
No.
when I was saying that Heaney's got a plus match. I'm like, Geelong's not that bad of a team, but their midfield's really poor, and it's a really good matchup for midfielders to go up against. That's the point I was trying to make. Yeah,
It's actually a good run of like the next like 6 games. It's you know what, you're right, Janath, because I'm looking at it now and I'm like, I don't think they lose another game. And all these teams are like, yeah, no, it wins.
That was all of our listener questions for this week.
Thanks, listeners.
thank you.
On Thursdays, we will post our weekly traffic lights. We'll grade some players each week, and they will either be awarded a green, yellow, or red rating. Green indicates a good pick. Yellow is a watch or hold. Red is a trade or avoid. A player could earn their rating for several reasons, including but not limited to scoring potential, job security, price point, reliability, or injury status. So keep a lookout on Thursday for our traffic lights if you need a hand with your trades. And this week, we promise we will actually post them this time. Last week was a tad difficult with no rookies and the buys coming up. It was just so hard to make a recommendation. Hope you all understand.
Round it's already gone. Let it go.
Round 13, vice captains and captains. Janath, who are you looking at as your vice captain this week?
Yep. So we just put up the captain's corn on the third man up. So I'll just list out my top 3, VC and C. So I got at 3 for the VCs, Rowan Marshall, 2, Marcus Bontempelli, and then number 1, I've got Isaac Heaney. I think he'll play a really good game against Geelong. And as a pod sort of LDU, Chad Warner up there as well. And then captaincy, I can't go past Max Gawn. We saw what Tim English did against Darcy Cameron, albeit in a high stoppage game. I think Max Gawn will bounce back. You could just tell in his face how much that loss really just hurt him. Brodie Grundy against Toby Conway at the SCG should be a really good matchup as well. And then you can't go past Nick Dacos really as another option against Melbourne on the King's birthday game. So those are probably the 6 sort of names that I've got up there. And so at the moment, I'll be going Isaac Heaney into Max Gawn. But hopefully Heaney gets the job done. And then I guess the other sort of caveat here is we'll wait and see what the Western Bulldogs team lineups look like, because I'm just a bit wary that Bont gets moved forward given Sam Darcy's out. And if they don't bring another key forward in, someone's got to play up forward, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Clarky, what about you? Who's your vice captain this week?
My vice captain, I'm sticking with the Sydney-Geelong matchup, but I am going with the vice captain on Chad Warner.
Nice.
He's been really serviceable. He's currently got the highest average of a lot of my midfielders at the moment, or 3-round average at least, with a couple of 130s in there, and then the C on Max Gawn on that Darcy Cameron matchup, because he's the shining beacon in all that I have left. Guys, I'm sad that Melbourne lost. Is that coming through?
I can tell it's coming through, and I'm trying really hard not to say anything.
No, because Fremantle were really good. It was a real mixed emotion for me, but I'm sad about my team, and I'm happy that your team's good, because I think Freo were really good as well. But yeah, no.
Freo are good when they want to be. They kind of don't want to be good sometimes.
That's fair. Carlton are also good, Janath. While I've got you here, Carlton were my tip for the premiers this year. So
don't jinx us.
The jinx is already out there. Just get rid of those lids, baby. I'll buy the Glad wrap. It's fine.
No lids are off until we fire our fitness boss.
Yeah.
Andrew Russell. Gosh, the amount of soft tissues we've had this year. It's up there with, terrible.
No, touch wood.
Touch wood.
Good run for the only reason. But yeah,
At-
go check out Third Man Up while we're talking captains. Their captain's corner is brilliant. I'll give Janath another shout out. I love your work, guys. Absolutely
you,
good.
mate.
Damo, who have you got for the VC and C this week?
My C has always been on Nick Dacos. Like since lockout opened last round, my C went straight on to Nick Dacos, and
That's fine. Doesn't hurt at all.
that's where it is. My VC keeps changing. It's gone Bontempelli, Heaney, like gone between those two guys, and I still can't decide. So at the moment, it's sitting on Heaney, but it could swing back to Bontempelli. It could go to someone completely different. I have no idea.
Very good.
Awesome.
I also don't mind Dane Zorko as a VC option as well.
Ooh.
Don't mind it either.
That's fine if you want to use facts and data. Go for ethical Dane Zorko, Zach Fisher.
Not a bad option against West Coast, I must say.
He might actually,
Okay.
he might actually
be
be
an
an
okay
option.
pick.
Let's not joke about this.
Guys, a stopped clock.
All right. That's it for this episode of the Footy Mailbag. Thank you, Janath. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so at Janath Fernando 4 on Twitter, or at @third_man up for the more data-driven side of things, as opposed to the anecdotes or the opinion-based stuff. But yeah, and then the SuperCoach Swordplay podcast, we record every Tuesday. So we normally record we normally put out a tweet very similar to you guys with the mailbag, just a mailbag that we go through questions and try to talk through things. That normally gets released on Wednesdays on Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your streams, really.
Make sure you go give them ratings and reviews as well. Get them in the algorithm. Get them in people's ears.
That's it. Thank you.
And Clarky, it was good to have you back in the co-host chair.
It's lovely to be here. I'm going to plug my stuff as well. Go listen to Falcon Footy. We had Tom from the Footy with Broden Kelly on, and we improved the incoming Tasmania approach by using some of the lessons from Tom is the Gold Coast Suns fan. So we used some of the lessons of his experience as a fan of an expansion club for what Tasmania should be doing. And we came up with some actually really good ideas, including some that are also not as good, but mostly good. Very good episode. Go listen to that at Falcon Footy Pod.
If you haven't given us a rating on your listening platform of choice, please do so. It helps new listeners find us. Make sure you check out SuperCoach rings at supercoachchampion.com for a Super Bowl style ring for your league winner. And make sure to visit our brand new website, thefootymailbag.net. Head over there for links to our social media, our t-shirt if you want to buy it, and our Google form for listeners who don't have social media and want to get involved. Thefootymailbag.net is the website. Head over there, take a look. Thanks for listening. We'll talk next time.
Bye.